want to discuss how to find or build a frequency distribution for a provided set of data using StatCrunch. So here I have a problem and it's giving me some description. I have data represents the time in minutes spent reading a political blog in a day. So construct a frequency distribution using 5 classes. I already have the table filled out, but let's talk about how we would do this in StatCrunch. So I'm going to click this little window button and I'm going to choose to open in StatCrunch. And here is my data. Now the first thing I would typically want to do is calculate sort the data. So I'm going to click data and I'm going to arrange the data. No, I'm going to sort the data. And I'm going to choose var1, right? So that's the name of my column of data. And then I'm going to select var1 as the criteria and I'm going to do ascending. I'm going to replace the current column and click compute, and we can see it sorted the data for me. Now the reason that I wanted to do that is if I come back to the data button and I choose bins, so this is one of the terms, right? So this textbook in particular calls these classes, right? So if I look over here, the groups of data, how I'm going to group the data are called class. And typically that can also be called a bin. So that's why I chose the bin option. So again, I'm going to choose var1 and I'm going to use a fixed width. So we always start at the min value. I can see over here in my sorted list the min value is 0. And then I need to calculate the bin width. So remember, the width is always the max value minus the min value. So I have 19 minus 0, which is 19, and then we divide by the class width of, we divide by the number of classes that we want, which is 5. So that gives me 3.8, and I'm going to round up to 4. So just as a reminder, we always round up. I got 3.8 and rounded to 4. If I would have gotten 3.1, I would still round to 4. So I'm going to go ahead then and click compute. And here's how the data is going to group itself. I just want to point out to you kind of a unique thing here, right? So the bin width was 4. And the way we use the bin width is we start the first class at the minimum value of 0. And then we add the width of 4 to get the beginning of the next class, right? The lower limit of the next class. So then I'd add 4 again and get 8, add 4 again, get 12, add 4 again, get 16. So what we do then is we take the beginning of the second class and we subtract 1. And that gives us the end of the first class. So notice StatCrunch isn't really structuring it that way. It's calling the first bin 0 to 4 and then the next bin 4 to 8. But it is actually counted properly if this was 0 to 3 and this was 8 to 11, so on and so forth. All right, so just to show you the frequencies that we get. So the first frequency from 0 to 3 is 6. So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that I get from 0 to 3. And then from 4 to 7, I'm getting 1, 2, and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, the problem is asking for the midpoint, which isn't difficult, right? I could do that on a calculator. The midpoint is 3 plus 0, and then I divide by 2. So I average these two numbers. 7 plus 4 divide by 2, that's giving me 5.5. And then I want the relative frequency. So remember what the relative frequency is. I'm going to take the frequency of that class and divide by the total frequency. So in this data set, we can see the total frequency we have is 20 data points. So I'm going to take 6 divided by 20, that's going to give me 0.3 as my relative frequency. 2 divided by 20 is going to give me 0.1, so on and so forth. And then the cumulative frequency is cumulative through each class. So the cumulative frequency through the first class is 6. The cumulative frequency by the end of the second class is 6 plus 2, which is 8. And then 6 plus 2 plus 5 is going to give me 13, so on and so forth there. So that's how we would build a frequency distribution using StatCrunch.